Welcome to our radio roundtable on the Neighbor to Neighbor initiative. I'm your host, Brad Cresswell, and I've got 4 guests in the studio with me right now. That is the Reverend Gail Catanella, who is the rector of St. Michael's in the Hills. And we also have Carol Nichols, who is associated with St. Michael's. Carol, what can you tell us about yourself? How should I be introducing you?
As a member of St. Michael's in the Hills.
Okay, so mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's
right. We also have Dave Carmel here with us. And Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I usually call myself a recovering politician because I was in politics in my 20s and then fortunately was able to get out of that and get gainful employment.
Yeah.
And I'm now retired from that and happily back in Toledo after living elsewhere for 30 years.
Okay, and we also have Brent Cousineau. Do you say Cousineau or Cousineau?
Cousineau. My grandfather said, make it sound like a Z. Cousineau.
I've heard it in different versions, but Brent, what's your role in the initiative?
Well, when asked, say yes, I guess. Reverend Gail said, maybe you could give us a hand. And I said yes. So that was, I think, maybe February after early start in January.
Let's go back and start with Carol, and you tell us about what it is, first of all, what the Neighbor to Neighbor initiative is, and how it began, because this was sort of your baby for a while, right?
So, Neighbor to Neighbor is a 2024 election year peace initiative. There's a lot of energy being put into a political divide in our country. And that's not new. This has been building for the past several years. And I really just didn't like that. I really thought, this just doesn't feel right. That people are being described as, them and, it sort of black and white and just, been bothering me for years, and St. Michael's has had a lot of transition over the years, and then there was a pandemic which kind of threw things off, and Gail came December 1st, and so kind of let her get through Christmas. It's a busy time for priests.
Yes.
And in early January, I said, Gail, I am just, it's an election year. I'm just really bothered by this political divide, and I'd really like St. Michael's in the Hills to do something. I said, even if it's just, signs that say, love your neighbor, even those who vote differently than you. And she said, I love it. Let's have a meeting. And so we had a meeting, and then boom, boom, boom. It's just like everything started falling into place, and suddenly we had an initiative, a 4-part campaign, if you will. And
I like how you were looking at Dave when you said people who didn't vote the way you did. Because we've got a perfect example right here in the two of you. You're neighbors, and you are from different ends of the political spectrum, yet you're still friends.
Notably, they're both wearing green today.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Indeed.
Right? Yeah.
Let's talk about the color scheme, because I've heard Stephen say that he didn't want red and blue. Steve Whiffley, who designed your colors. So you've got what? Green
and fuchsia, pink. Yeah.
Those are nice, peaceful colors, right?
Yeah. Well,
and colors rarely chosen for political signs. So
yes.
they're perfect.
Right.
That's true. Well, you've got signs, you've got bumper stickers, so it is kind of a campaign, really. And let's bring Reverend Gail into the discussion. What was your reaction to this whole idea, Reverend Gail?
Well, it seemed like something church should do. It seemed like bringing people together and caring about people and building community is what we should be about, not breaking down, not breaking up, but building up. So we really tried to think about things that would create community and create goodwill among people, and just get down to the bare bones and say, what do we really who are we really? We're neighbors.
Yeah.
And what do neighbors do? They take care of each other. And they take care of each other no matter what. One of my children had major surgery when they were children, and people I didn't even know, people I didn't even like, were bringing casseroles to my house. When you're a neighbor, you take care of each other.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree, but you know what you need. And there's many, many ways to be a neighbor. That's another really nice thing about this. You don't have to have a special set of skills. You don't have to have a lot of money. You just need to care about one another.
Yeah. You recently had a party event
We
for
did.
people that were involved in Neighbor to Neighbor. Did you have a good response for that?
We did. We had probably pretty close to 500 people show up in the course of our event. We were very grateful to the Metro Parks for giving us the Glass City Pavilion to host this. It was 56 days, the band. You might not play that on this station, but but they're fabulous. And we wanted to start by bringing people together. And we figure if you're dancing and you're singing, you're not going to be mad at each other.
Yeah. Brent, let's hear from you a little bit. Can you talk a little bit more in depth about how you got involved with this initiative?
Actually, I heard the two words, David Brooks, and my wife and I watch the PBS NewsHour every Friday night, and he has a piece on with Jonathan Capehart, and we enjoy that discussion. And so it's like, yes, that would be really, really exciting. And it wasn't my idea. It was a great idea by Sarah Schindel. But he said yes. And to make a long story short, we realized we started to put a budget together. And we needed to raise some money. And so I got involved in some of that activity. But importantly, my calling is kind of reach outs and helping build the community partner group, of which we have about 40 community partners, of which WGTE, thank you, is one of them. And Mercy Health's an important one. There's just every one of them has a special story about why they were called and felt they should be part of it. Many of them are faith communities. The Sisters of St. Francis have blessed us with the Franciscan Center for the Brooks event. And so the story could continue. It's just really been heartening. I don't think we would have imagined we'd have about 40 community partners. It's kind of remarkable.
Well, and one interesting point just to add to what Brent is saying is that when we booked David Brooks, we had nothing. We had no money, had no community partners. We just stepped out in faith because we believed in what we were doing. And it has just come together astoundingly, miraculously, remarkably. The support of the community has been just tremendous. Yeah. And now he's paid for, which is a good thing. But we just believed it mattered. We believed that it mattered. And we're very grateful that so many people have agreed with us.
One outstanding example is the Toledo Lucas County Public Library. So all the branches were one of our early places to put some signs. And we've realized that we really need more help in that regard because delivering them all is hard. So the next big round of signs are going to be, in the next few weeks. They're going to be available at the branches. And they've also made posts about book lists that people might want to think about that relate to some of the David Brooks book of How to Know a Person. So
they were early supporters.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about. The fact that David Brooks is coming on October 8th, it's happening at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Franciscan Life Center, which is in Lourdes University in Sylvania. David Brooks, well known as a commentator for PBS, but also for other things, and obviously an author. That title of his book, How to Know a Person, is kind of interesting, and it sounds like judging by the title, that it is peripheral to what you're talking about. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the themes in that book.
David Brooks talks about how we tend to categorize people and make judgments quickly, like all different kinds of ways that we quickly jump into deciding what a person is like.
Yeah.
And how if you really spend time with that person, or even if you just are open to try to push some of those instant judgments aside, you will see so much more and learn so much more about that person and be rewarded by that.
Yeah.
So he shares lots of different perspectives on how to do that, and lots of research. He's a great researcher, and he has lots of examples, personal examples from other people. It's a good book.
Yeah.
And it's it's not rocket science. It's just taking a step back. It's practicing listening sometimes more than jumping in and trying to convince somebody of whatever.
And don't judge people by their group that they get categorized in. We love as humans to make it easy. All these people are, let's say, white, and, or all these people are of a particular party persuasion. But you know what? What he's saying is, look, the reality is each of those people is a different person. They don't necessarily agree or follow the approach of a particular group. Totally. They are unique.
Right.
And so learn about that. Know the person. And
Right.
it really makes sense.
It does. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Everyone has lots of stories.
What has been, and this is for everybody, what has been the most rewarding experience for you when it comes to this initiative?
How many times have we cried, Carol?
Yeah, a lot.
So for me, I'm brand new to the community. As Carol said, I just started in December. What an introduction to Toledo, to meet 100 different people who are all doing amazing things in the community, who are willing to take some time to listen to what we're doing in the community and work with us. I mean, I've been to coffee with 75 people easily, and each one has a story, each one has a passion, each one has a reason to connect with us and be supportive. I'm just bowled over by the good people that I have met here, and it makes Toledo look really good to me.
I think the thing that was rewarding to me was, I went to was it the first meeting? I don't know. I think it was the first meeting. And, Carol introduced me as the neighbor who had the opposite political signs, and yet we were good friends and neighbors. And, they would...
You're the poster children, so to speak.
Yeah, they would take care of my dog when it was necessary, if I was going to be out late, and I would get their mail or those kind of things. And I did think it was a great idea, and I wanted to help spread the word as well. So I belong to a different church, Christ the King, and I thought, well, I'll go to my pastor and see if he would be willing to sign on to this, even though it came from a different church, a different religion. Would he be willing to sign on? And we had a little meeting with him, and he heard what it was about, and he said, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And so he put it in our Sunday bulletin, and we signed on as a partner. And I think that's the kind of program it is. The more people actually find out what it is, they say, yeah, what a great idea.
I mean, you're obviously affiliated with lots of religious organizations,
Yes.
but it's not necessarily a religious topic.
Right.
No.
Right.
Correct. I think it's a great example, too, back to Toledo and the DNA of it, that I think Gail has learned about in a good way, is just, another example I have is the Rotary Club of Toledo. There's a peace committee there, and I took it to a couple of the key members there, Raina Dawson and Karen Strommel, who co-chair it, and they immediately embraced this, and in fact the whole committee. And then Chuck Stocking said, let's get 10 books and let's make them available. Sure enough, those were all taken for reading.
Yeah.
But it's just that kind of embracing, that's typical of Toledo, I think, in terms of, good things will get attention and people will be drawn to them.
Well, and intentionally we have not made it a religious endeavor, even though it's certainly a part of most religious experiences that I know of and most good people that I know of. But But what I didn't expect was the transformation that we hear about in neighborhoods. So we've heard stories about people saying, hey, there's a person with a sign down the block from me that I don't know. I'm going to go meet that person because I want to know why they put up that sign. Or people have said, I know of neighbors who put up signs and they didn't like each other and now they're talking to one another, or using the signs to build bridges in their communities or in their neighborhoods. One of the things David Brooks says is that we should listen to be transformed. We shouldn't listen to say the next thing or to think about the next thing we want to talk about, but we should really listen to be transformed. And we can't control what our neighbors do. And some neighbors we're just never going to like, but we can be better. And that's another thing that people have said to me every time. This one guy's, every time I pass those signs, I think I should be a better neighbor. Like, okay, good.
Well, it could mean multiple things. I mean, on the sign, you just see neighbor to neighbor or love your neighbor.
Heart your neighbor.
Heart your neighbor.
Heart your neighbor. I mean, it can be, it can apply to lots of different situations in life.
Absolutely.
So that was smart on your part that, you put that on the sign because it draws people in. Who's going to argue with love your neighbor, right?
Wink, wink.
Another community that's having some challenges is Maumee with things going on there with regard to the restructuring of Conant Street and so on. And there's a lot of angst they're experiencing. It's not necessarily political, maybe a little bit, but so people have reached out that want signs specifically because of some of the unfriendly, unneighborly angst that's been going on to try to, mend.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not always easy. There may be situations where neighbors really do have a big divide, and you don't have maybe any control over that. You don't have control over who moves in next door to you or
right.
Who you have to deal with. But you do have control over how you behave. And so you can either at least not fan the flames and just don't engage, or you can, simply smile and wave.
Yeah.
And that's
It's what a lot of people do every Thanksgiving. Or Christmas or whatever holiday they're visiting there.
right. I just wanted to point out to recognize that it's not always as easy as Dave and I have it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
It's funny you mentioned that, Carol, because I mentioned this to my little brother that I was doing this program, and he said, well, what am I going to do with my neighbor? Because he's got one of these neighbors that, doesn't take care of their property. The trees are all overgrown. They're growing onto his property. It looks terrible. Cars parked out there, and just it's a mess. And the neighbor doesn't care and
yeah, we can't
talk to him, So what are you going to do? He just has to kind of live with that. And yeah, it's not always as easy as having a great neighbor like we have, or I have. I won't speak for you.
like we have. You can
Yes.
say that.
Well, I've certainly had people say to me, people have hurt me, or people have hurt my children, and I am never going to forgive that.
Mm.
And I understand that, if someone hurt my child, I would have a hard time getting past that. So it might be that you never reconcile with that person who has hurt you, but it might be that because you're thinking about being a good neighbor, that it motivates you to do other good things. So is this a panacea? Is this going to take care of every problem? Well, only if we empower ourselves to be kind.
Yeah.
And if we do that, and we can practice that, because it isn't always simple or easy, but if we can practice that kindness, that basic behavior of kindness, then maybe some of the problems in the world will be easier to solve.
Yeah.
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Because
Yeah.
I want to just point out that one of our initiatives is intentional acts of kindness.
Right.
The week before the election. So before we move on beyond the election, I just wanted to say that the days and the weeks leading up to the election, really, we're asking everyone to be creative and to be intentional about finding ways to be kind to each other, to go beyond what we normally do of the smile and the wave, to find a way to bring some joy into somebody's life, to lower the temperature, to, you can all just take a deep breath, and, we're gonna get through this, and we're gonna, guess what? We're gonna be neighbors after the election too. So
that's where it's coming from. But
thank
you have a great resource on the website, which we should mention is neighbortoledo.com. 2 is like the number 2. And we'll link to that on our website as well. But you have intentional acts of kindness all on your website, suggestions, and I've printed it out here. There's wonderful free suggestions that we really could do and should be doing like all the time for people. Something as simple as taking trash bins in for a neighbor. I know a lot of people appreciate that. I've done it for my family in the past, and they certainly appreciated it. But you're talking about, extending that familial relationship to the entire community, and I think that is definitely a message that we not only need to hear, but that everybody is hungry for in some way.
Well, and we want everyone to see themselves as people capable of kindness, because everybody has a story. Not everybody sees themselves as good or friendly, but it doesn't have to be specific to even people. You can pick up the trash on the Metro Parks walkways,
That's true. Yeah.
Just anything that contributes to making the world better. And if that became a habit in everyone's life, one of the funny ones, in church we had people write down some of the things they'd been doing, and one person said, "Fighting my road rage." Which
I did an entire sermon on that once.
There you go. So you know what I'm saying. But if we pick something that we're intentional about, and we practice it, and it becomes a habit, then again the world is just a little bit better.
Yeah. I do want to mention that you have a sort of a rap party going on. That's happening on
November 17th.
November 17th. Yeah, you beat me to it. 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Glass City Metro Park in the Enrichment Center. Now, the Glass City Metro Park and Metro Parks in general have been a great partner to you.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and it seems like their mission kind of coincides with yours, is that as soon as we enter it, we become nice to each other, and it seems like that message resonates with what you're doing as well. So
absolutely.
Of the community members that you have, companies that have stepped up to the plate, as it were. Are there any aside from the Metro Park that you really want to highlight that have really gone the extra mile? Maybe they've done an intentional act of kindness towards your initiative.
I just want to refer people to our website, because that's where all the community partners are listed.
Yeah.
And, we went into this saying no one was going to be better or more valued than anyone else, that every contribution was going to be held up and appreciated, and that, some groups are capable, the foundations are capable of doing some things, churches are capable of doing some things, synagogues are capable of doing some things, businesses are capable of doing some things. All we ask is that you do what you can do, and that you promote kindness. So I don't really want to say one group is kinder than the other, because that might not be kind. But what I want to say is we have been so moved and impressed by the reaction and the help that we've gotten from all of these community partners. It's been really rewarding.
It's great, because think about it. Each one of them has their own unique story. They're all different, and they were drawn to this. So that says something. I think something good.
Well, we had a community partner breakfast back in June when we were still pulling things together, and we were in awe because we had 25 people, 25 organizations represented, many of whom were not necessarily connected to one another, or there wasn't necessarily a straight line, and yet everyone in that room was committing themselves to kindness and to being a neighbor and making new connections and meeting new people. It was stunning to see and deeply moving. So that has been just a wonderful thing.
Well, what do you hope that people will take away from this initiative, this entire a thing that you've done?
Just
Yeah.
give some respect. Offer that. Go back. Let's go back to the day where it was okay to be thinking differently and to have different political opinions. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
We don't have to each agree. That's okay. I mean, I remember the days when that was very much in vogue.
Yeah.
So that's one thing for me that I think about.
Yeah, I think it reminds us that it can, as Carol said, it can start with me. It doesn't have to be some huge earth-shattering thing. You can do something. You can be kind to your neighbor, whether it's taking them something to eat when you've got extra, or bringing in their garbage cans, picking up some trash that's in front of the house. Some little things like that. You can just make the world better in your own little way.
Yeah.
So my answer to that is, I want people to know that everybody matters and everyone's necessary. That we don't discount and can't discount any person. Everyone matters, and we need everybody. Everybody brings a different gift to the table. Everybody brings a different sensibility. Everybody brings a different priority. But when we all come together, everything's taken care of. So if even one person's left out, then we're not the whole that we need to be. We need to be a whole community. That's when we'll be safe. That's when we'll be connected. That's when our needs will be met, and we'll regard everybody as important. So that's what I'd like to see come out of it.
The political parties creating their own imagery and whatnot that they're trying to do, but it's very much a divisive thing. The other people are bad, and that's not America, I don't think. And so it's not how humans and how we as people and citizens and neighbors. It's just not. I mean, it's not sensible. It doesn't work.
Well, actually, I'll have to
Please.
disagree.
Oh, please,
The
go
reason
ahead.
they do that
Please.
is because it does work.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's why they do
okay.
negative ads.
There we go.
I'm just, as a political person,
Give
they
that.
work.
Yeah.
And that's
Proven,
why they
proven.
do them.
Okay.
I mean, they wouldn't do them if they didn't work. It's too bad that they do work, but I guess because we're human beings, we react to those things. So we also have to realize that we're all human beings, and certain things
We're not
work
perfect.
in terms of
Yeah.
getting our attention and influencing.
I think one of the reasons
so.
why Neighbor to Neighbor has had such a warm response in Toledo is I think that people are tired of this narrative of the divide, and they're tired of being angry and afraid.
Yeah.
And I think there are sweeping forces that are beyond our control. Like, Carol Nichols is not going to impact how political advertisements are going to go.
Right.
But I have a choice. I have a choice, and I will vote, but I have a choice in how I respond. And that's why I wanted to push back against that and just say, hey, bring it down. Let's just there's a lot of kindness out there if you just open your eyes. And we are not helpless and hopeless. We are empowered to do good.
And each person here has made my life better just by who they are. If you get to know people, it changes things.
Yeah.
Dave, you made such a great point, and it's easy to gloss over that and think more, sort of altruistically. But to your point, the economics of it all drive end results. Economics and results, right? These negative ads, to your point, and you've seen this over all the years, I try to ignore it, but it does give results. And unfortunately, we then are all the recipients of this, and it's beaten into us. But Carol, I love it. We have the right and ability to choose our response. Mm-hmm. That is huge.
Yeah.
And maybe we help people think about that a little bit more.
And when I see these Heart Your Neighbor signs out all around the town, it just makes me feel like the person who put that sign out, they want peace.
Yeah.
They want to express, hey folks, let's get along.
Have you ever been driving around the city and you see one of those signs and you think to yourself, I did that?
It makes me it gives me goosebumps. It makes me, feel like I want to cry, tears of joy. It's just, it's been very affirming. I am not alone. Sure, people are saying, oh, it was your idea. But obviously, a whole lot of other people had that same idea. And that makes me feel good.
What's also sweet is that, in the same yards that have the Love Your Neighbor sign, there are signs from one party, and then somewhere else you see the sign from the opposite party.
Right.
And I actually kind of smile at that, because that's what we would only hope for, that this is not one party or the other. This is everybody.
Right.
So, and that kind of speaks to that. When you see somebody that's taking the effort to put a political sign out of one party or the other, that's important to them. That's why they put it in their yard. But that they also have the Love Your Neighbor, it's both parties, and that's good.
Well, and the whole sign thing is just so unlikely to me. I mean, when we talked about the signs, I'm thinking, there'll be 10 signs in my garage for the rest of my life, And we gave away 1,000 signs in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And right now, all the 500 that we just ordered in last week are already spoken for, and we are going to end up ordering another 500 signs next week. So clearly, it's touched something in the community. It's touched the hearts of the community.
And blessedly, some people are donating to help defray the cost, because they're not free. We're giving them away, but we have to pay for them.
Yeah.
Right. And
so let me ask you, Reverend Gail, then, what is the party about that's happening at the end on November 17th?
So part of it will be just gratitude, and celebrating gratitude, and talking about what we're grateful for and how different people express gratitude. We're working with the Multi-Faith Council on that. And part of it will be just acknowledging that we're still neighbors, because, as we sit here, we don't know what's going to happen. But we do know that we're still going to be neighbors November 17th, just like we are now. And then another piece of it will be to talk about the future and say, what moved you about this, and what might we want to continue doing, and who's going to help us.
The initiative is called Neighbor to Neighbor. You can find that online at Neighbor to Neighbor Toledo, all as one word, with 2 as the number 2.com. We'll link to that on our website as well when we post this interview. I want to thank Reverend Gail Campanella, and also Carol Nichols and Dave Carmel and Brent Kuzno. I want to thank all 4 of you for coming in and talking about this wonderful initiative today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor?